We've had Joseph walking around with us because we were told to take his bones with us on the journey to remember our past. We've talked about roundabouts yesterday afternoon because we know this isn't a straight journey through the wilderness. There will be lots of twists and turns. And we've talked about and created pillars, reminders of God's presence always. And we've talked about what do we carry with us in the wilderness? What do we take with us? And what do we negotiate? What do we leave behind? What may not be important anymore? And most importantly, how do we decide about those things? How do we make decisions? The journey's not a straight path. There are lots of struggles along the way. But what we are reminded of is that God is ever present with us, by day and by night. In my family, there are four of us siblings. Now, if you're looking at that picture trying to figure out, most people look, it's the top kind of left blonde. When we get to... Isn't she adorable? When my family gets together, particularly the siblings, we get together and we talk. And we have common stories that we share. So we can get talking about something that happened, like, when we told my younger brother that Santa Claus wasn't coming, and we had a friend call and tell him, you've been so horrible, not coming this year. Oh, we were horrible. Yeah. We have common stories. Well, as you might guess, when we tell those family stories, everybody's kind of got their own perspective. My older brother will remember one thing about an event. I'll remember something else, and my memory is kind of faulty anyway, so they're usually filling in my gaps. My younger sister will remember something about it from her perspective, and if you talk about Santa Claus, I think my little brother still gets a little shaky. But we all have our perspectives on a common story. And if you throw in my parents into that mix, my father now deceased, but my mom will share the same story, and she'll remember it from a whole different perspective than the four of us do. I think that's the way it is in families. Common stories, we all have perspectives about those stories, different views on the same event. Well, that's not too unlike what we've heard about this wilderness experience in which the church finds itself today. These are really difficult times, and all of us have different points of view depending on when we entered the story. And we have different opinions about how we go forward from here. We differ on what we need and what we might leave behind. We may or may not agree on decisions that have to be made. But what will sustain us in the midst of all of this uncertainty are those pillars, the constant presence of God. And I think, and I'm learning, that along the way in this experience of wilderness, that it will be the conversations we have one another that will be most important to us. And it is along the way that we will discover what we need to know about God and one another. When I was a child, there was a movie that came on. I think it might have been Thanksgiving every year, so I'm still a little shaky on Thanksgiving myself. This movie would come on. Anybody seen The Wizard of Oz? Yeah. You remember the story then. There's Dorothy, the main character of the story, and she lives in Kansas. Now, this story I was kind of fascinated with, right? There's lots going on in this story. But I have to admit, I was also a little creeped out by it. I don't know about you. I'm a little creepy about the story as well. But there's Dorothy, the main character of the story, living a... Look at her. She's so happy. She's singing. She's got her little dog. Life is wonderful in Kansas for Dorothy. She's having a great time. And then all of a sudden, a tornado blows through the farm. Dorothy's whacked on the head. And when she wakes up, she finds herself in the wilderness dance and welcome her. They're so happy that she's there. And she also meets new friends along the way in the wilderness, not unlike we have this weekend. And they're all trying to journey to a place. And they're trying to discover something about themselves that they need. Her new friends are looking for things. Dorothy just wants to go home, back to what's familiar. Where have you heard that before? I want to go back to Egypt, to what's familiar. Remember the Israelites. Her friends are looking for things too. Maybe not unlike the Israelites also. Courage, heart, and some brains. The wilderness journey is roundabout for Dorothy and her friends. There's lots that happen along their journey to Oz. And it was a scary place at times. Flying monkeys, witches that want to get her and her shoes. But there are also good people along the way. People that she meets that give them advice and hope and courage that they need to get where they need to go. At the end, they all discover what they're looking for. And more importantly, this shared journey has changed each one of them. That's not so different from us, I don't think. Strange journeys in strange lands that we don't understand. Lots of scary things happen along the way. We're lucky enough to find friends to journey with us. But there's lots to do and it feels roundabout. For a very long time, the church has felt like a fairly stable place where people flocked in by the droves to get to worship in the morning. Anybody see droves this morning? For a lot of us in our congregations, we know that that experience is rapidly changing. On Sunday mornings, people have lots of choices about what they do with their time. Maybe when you drove by today, you saw a soccer game, or a mall ready to be opened with shoppers, local coffee shops filled with those working on their computers. Sunday morning's not the same. The community doesn't hold this time as sacred space like it once did. People have lots of options. The world has changed. It's not the world I've known, but it is the world that the youth here at this assembly have been known and have been born into. It feels like things were going along fairly well for a while for the church, and then all of a sudden a devastating wind blew us into a strange place and set us down. And we are beginning to wake up and realize that not much looks familiar anymore. Strange things happen. We come across new situations we never even dreamed about. And there are lots of scary things that are happening. Some of us came from that stable land of the church. How many of you came from Egypt? You knew what it was like when people were coming to church. The church was full, Sunday school classes full of folks. And others understand this strange new world in ways I never can, because it is the place of their birth. But now, all of us from Egypt or born in the wilderness are joined together in this roundabout journey of finding our way. And I think it will be the conversations we have with one another that will help us negotiate this wilderness world. When my family gets together and we share stories, we each learn more about ourselves, more about one another, and more about our common journey. Dorothy and her new friends, each with different perspectives, learn from one another through their conversations. They find out more about who they are and ultimately find the places they're supposed to be. They're also given the gifts they were seeking: courage, heart, a brain, and home. But friends, this just isn't a time of aimless wandering for the church. It can and must be a productive time for us. We have things to do.
Yes.
Amen.
There's too much heartache, too much pain, too much suffering in this world for us to just go on standby and wait around. We need to discern what it is that God needs us to do, and then we need to do it.
Yes.
We've been given this time and this day. We can build on the past, but we cannot live there. We are not in Egypt any longer. Longing for a past that cannot be reclaimed is no longer an option. It only keeps us from facing today's realities squarely in the face and dealing with them. What was done in the past is not bad. It worked for people of another time. We now have to figure out together what it is we need to do to be faithful in our time. Those who knew Egypt and those born in the wilderness, sharing perspectives, listening to one another, and moving forward as one people of God. In this time of uncertainty, we need each other. We will need every voice to be heard. We will need to continually be aware of inviting others to tables of conversations. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, but we know this. Like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, and Dorothy, we're all going to need all the courage we can muster for the risks we need to take. It will take all of our hearts to express the love God has for us and all of God's children. It will take the wisdom of our praying to discern what God calls us to do here and now. We won't remain the same on this journey. We will learn along the way. What will remain? The presence of God. A pillar, signs, cloud in the day, fire for the night. It won't be a straight road from point A to point B. There will likely be many roundabouts as well as times of facing scary things together. But we have God. Amen?
Amen.
God is with us, and we have one another. Amen?
Amen.
So those who came from Egypt, those born in the wilderness, let's all gather the best we have to offer and join the adventure. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.